Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello, and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin. Joining me always, Blake Harrison. How are you on this Sunday morning?
I am good, mate. I am good. I've just realised I've left the door open, so we're probably going to get some outside noise until I just quickly shut that. So, as always, very professional start from me. I'm good. I'm a little bit confused because I've just watched a certain main event, and we're going to get onto it. But it's yeah. How are you? Are you confused? Are you equally confused?
I'm not as confused as last weekend.
Nothing's going to make me as confused as last weekend.
I'm still trying.
This is bad. This is either bad judging or judging we don't understand. I don't just want to go out there and say bad judging because that it feels wrong. I'm not a judge. Let's give them some benefit of doubt here. Sure. This is either just judging we don't fully understand, or it could be bad judging. Last week was just defied all laws of God and man and nature and everything.
Yeah.
So less confused than last week. But here we are with, I suppose we should say, UFC Noche or Noche UFC. I don't know which way around you do this, but obviously the Mexican Independence Day card that the UFC put on, headlined by champion Alexa Grasso, taking on in a rematch the now challenger Valentina Shevchenko, trying to get her belt back. The build up all week was quite good. Towards the end of the week, the two of them had a little bit of needle going on. Shevchenko looked furious just constantly, and it looked like it was going to be pretty good. And I would say overall the fight didn't disappoint.
Not at all.
Until it was a really good fight. I think it was a much better fight than their first fight. But then the scorecards were read out, and it's just left a few people a little bit confused. I know you have kind of gone over this maybe a bit more than I have, so I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it and how you'd like to start this show and how you'd like to kind of talk about it.
Okay, well, I'd like to go for it sort of round by round, really. And
go on then. I'm shutting the door. I'm not leaving you. I'm not like disgusted by any of your ideas or anything.
For those that aren't watching this on YouTube, Harrison is looking full Jorge Masvidal today. He's got a really spectacular shirt on.
I like to dress up for you, Steve. I like to dress up for you,
All right. Well, look, I mean, I know that you haven't done a sort of a bit of a sort of breakdown, and we should also say we've only just sort of finished watching these fights, because I think on the face of it, it didn't warrant getting up in the middle of the night, this card, and I think had I have done that and then got the result that we got at the end of this, I would have been really angry, but even more disappointed than I am now.
I'm not that angry about the result. I'll remind me to explain this later. I don't understand the result, but I'm sort of, because of what will transpire going forward now, I'm not totally angry at it. But carry on.
All right. So look, let's start with round one, okay? And so I think right from the off, Valentina dominated with the striking, much heavier strikes until one shot. But I think what we saw was Valentina, she looked angry. Like you said that she looked angry in the press. She come in there, she looked laser focused.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Her body was angry.
Yeah.
Her body was angry. It was tight.
She wasn't loose, was she?
She wasn't loose. But I tell you what, she was the first kind of like minute and a half, she was firing in like some body kicks and some jabs, and she was pissed. Yeah. She was really angry that she was back here against Grasso without her belt around her waist.
And that jab, I think that was a real important part of the whole fight. Her jab looked phenomenal. I think Grasso looked all right. I think there was the body lock takedown at the end, but I think like Grasso landed one shot and it landed really clean in that first round. I don't know. For me, I thought Shevchenko in that first round was so dominant with her striking. She took the first round. Like, so I definitely gave the first round, and I think on most people's scorecards, I think that was a safe choice to give that round to Shevchenko. I don't think Grasso done anywhere near enough to take that round.
Easy Shevchenko round for me, round one.
Okay, right. So things get more interesting in round two, I thought. Like Shevchenko straight away comes back out, tries to sort of dominate the striking, throws a huge right hand. Then Grasso, I think she's almost a little bit. I think her feet aren't placed particularly well, Valentina's, but Grasso clips her. And good. And drops.
She does one of those backward rolls. She falls backwards, but she sort of rolls backwards straight onto her feet. So it shows there was probably, don't get me wrong, I count that as a knockdown.
100%. 100%.
But there was probably as much of a balance issue involved in that as much as it was just the impact of the strike. But that's a knockdown. That is a knockdown.
Of course it is. But then she absolutely like swarmed her in that sort of clinch. It was like a bit of a tire clinch. There was lots of dirty boxing going on it, and I thought she looked but really phenomenal. Grasso there, and I thought,
Valentina looked hurt in that moment. She looked really hurt in that moment.
Then she went for the double leg, and she got it. But then Grasso got straight back up, and then just started throwing real vicious knees.
Was that where there was the up kick as well? There was the up kick, and then
that was a little later, I think.
Oh, okay,
Hang on,
No, you go. I'm interrupting. You go. You're
sure
probably right.
It was because that up kick was fantastic as well.
Yes.
But so I think round two. I think if we're scoring that as a knockdown, that's Grasso's round, right?
Yeah, and I would say that the up kick as well, I think, and even from bottom towards the end of the round, Valentina tried to kind of push through into Grasso's guard because I think as she went down, Grasso from her back landed a couple of hooks, and I think that slightly rocked Shevchenko as well. I don't know that anyone else has picked up on this, but I think you watch that moment. Shevchenko goes down to try and get on top of her again, and she sort of stops and then ends up pushing through into. She doesn't try and pass Grasso's guard. She tries to push into it to get her head down, I think, because she got caught with shots on the way in as well. So that is 100% a Grasso round easy. I think the first kind of 3 rounds are very easy to score, I think. But it's after that they get crazy. Well, no, I think he'd probably go. Well, we'll see. We're trying to use a bit of technology on today's episode. Stu's in charge, so we'll see how that goes.
It's going to have absolutely no purpose for anybody listening. But if you're over on YouTube, you'll get something more aesthetically pleasing than our elderly bones. Right. Okay. Right. Round 3. Again, I thought Shevchenko comes straight out, trying to sort of assert herself and take control of the octagon. Lots of like little sort of inside right kicks, and I don't know if you saw like the inside leg kicks. Grasso was getting some swelling and what looked like a bit of bruising as well. And where do we go after this? I'm just trying to look at that. Right. So that was quite interesting. Grasso got out of the mounted guillotine. And then literally just went straight into the body triangle, Valentina's body triangle.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think just the control there and the dominance there and the damage from that point, like where she was just trying Shevchenko's round, right?
All day long. Going into the championship rounds, it's 2-1 Shevchenko.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone scored it any differently.
Round 4's the one, I think, that I guess could go either way on some people's scorecards, right?
Yeah.
Straight back out Shevchenko completely. Like I've got so many notes about. I was so impressed with her jab. Like she completely starts throwing that jab out, and it's looking so crisp. And you can see that it's causing Grasso issues trying to get the range because she can't because she's just being like smacked with that kind of crisp jab. And then that's when. Basically, when them sort of shots of exchanges, there's one thrown back at Valentina, and then Grasso gets that clinch, and then she starts walking her back. And as we see her walking back, she's throwing knees, and Valentina's kind of reaching for the canvas as well to
try and have that point of contact so she can't throw the knees.
and you could
But
see Shevchenko complaining, like
yeah,
when she got back against the octagon, she was saying, "Look, what was going on there?" She was sort of motioning that she had her hand on the canvas. But I think if you watch the replay, like she's throwing as she's stepping, and as she's stepping, her hands coming off. I don't think there was any illegal knees thrown there.
Well, as John Anik said on the broadcast, we've rewatched the tape. There was no illegal knees, and apparently, and I didn't know this, but it makes sense. You can't just sort of drag your hand along the mat and that count as a point of contact. There has to be weight on it. You have to be kind of basing with it as well. So there's 3 kind of points of contact on the mat, and dragging your hand across does not count. So when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh God, Grasso's got to be careful here. Like, surely that's illegal." But no, that they weren't illegal knees, so they count, and they were impactful. They were. I mean, I do think maybe up until that moment, you've done more detailed breakdown than me. I'm just going by memory, and I sort of watched it in reverse order. So the Chevy fight was probably the first fight I watched, and I felt like Valentina had maybe you could argue Valentina had done enough, but then those knees were so impactful.
No, there's more yet, though. That's the thing.
There's more. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Because that happened around the 3-minute mark, them knees.
Yeah.
And up until then, Shevchenko had controlled that fight, that round, sorry. And then you get them knees. Yes, they were impactful, but then as soon as she comes out of that, there's 2 minutes of Shevchenko outboxing her, like completely outboxing her, until right in the last 10 seconds, it goes to the ground and she locks that heel hook in, which doesn't look like it's going to work. And obviously the buzzer goes. For me, I thought Valentina got that round. I thought, like, apart from them knees, she just outstruck her and looked so much stronger and dominant and I think potentially caused more damage because there was blood pouring down the face of Grasso coming into the 5th as well. And that comes from them stiff jabs.
Well, 2 of the judges agree that Shevchenko won round 4. One of them believed that Grasso won round 4.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get through round 5, and then should we pull up the scorecards?
Sure.
And then we'll have a sort of closer look at that. So I think it could potentially have been 2 each going into the 5th.
Yeah.
You know, on some people's scorecards, it could have been. It was 3-1 to me.
Yeah.
And then
I think either scorecards are valid at this point.
Yeah.
Either score, it could be 2-2, it could be 3-1. I don't think you can argue too much. You can understand how someone's got to either of those places.
I agree. The first 2 minutes of round 5, Grasso's not really doing a lot of work. She's circling, like I think she looks a bit tired. Her strikes look quite sort of laboured, and again Valentino just looking solid with her striking, looking dominant. So that's when Chev goes for the takedown, and Grasso does that fantastic switch. A bad mistake by Shevchenko there, and she switches, takes her back, and locks in that choke. She does retain control of her back.
Yep.
But while she's not doing any damage, Shevchenko is striking constantly. Like she's still.
My memory is that Grasso was doing shots whilst on her back.
Okay.
I felt like that minute and a half at the end was all Grasso for me. She was going for the choke, but she was also raining down blows at points.
Okay.
So that last minute and a half for me was all Grasso. It's just, did Chevy do enough leading up to that point to still win the round?
Them first 2 minutes, as I said, like I thought Shevchenko completely outstruck her, and she looked tired and laboured, and the shots weren't really doing anything. The actual stats on the significant shots for the whole fight were really quite tight. But for me, I think it just comes down to damage in that 5th round.
Yep.
And I feel if you look at the state of Grasso's face in the early parts of that round, that damage is coming from big heavy shots from Shevchenko.
We have to be careful about that, though. It's like when we talk about damage on someone's face,
I know what you're saying.
you know, that whole thing of like Nate Diaz,
yes,
you flick him and he will open up. You can't score that in the same way as someone who doesn't get marked up, but has taken an impactful strike. It's about it's not about the damage on the face or the blood you can see. It's about, which is a difficult science, but measuring the impact of that strike. So who had the most accumulation of the biggest impact in the overall round on the opponent?
And so I think, for me, I felt that until Shevchenko made that little error and Grasso took her back, I thought she completely dominated that round, and by just outboxing her. So for me, I still give round 5 to Valentina as well. And so it just kind of, I think Valentina knew she'd won, and I think she looked super confident. I thought Grasso didn't think she'd won. When as soon as you see them like break, you can generally see on the fighter's face like who looks like this is mine and who looks like, oh, this could be worryingly tight. And then we get the decision. And I mean, before we get to that decision, like when the final buzzer went, like, where was you at with it? What did you think?
I was thinking it could be 48-47 Shevchenko, or it could potentially be 49-46 Shevchenko.
Yeah.
I didn't score round 5 for Grasso, despite the fact that she got in some really good spots towards the end of the round. I just felt like Chevy had done enough in the lead up to that moment to take round 5. And that was a key moment for me. Yeah. And that is why I am so sure. I don't know if you want to, we're talking about the cards. Why don't you try and bring up that, that scorecard, if possible, for us to quickly look at. This is where Grandad Whiffin tries to get a bit technological. Look at this. If you're on YouTube, you're getting a treat right now. Oh, here we go. Stu Whiffin's done it. So this isn't like a great shot. This is literally, I took this off my TV. So not the best shot in the world. But as you can see, if you are watching this on YouTube, first 3 rounds are pretty clear. All the judges score it the same. Me and Stu scored it the same. I'm pretty much everyone out there scored it the same. Going into the championship rounds, so Shevchenko is 2-1 up.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
So let's just draw a line on them. We don't need to talk about the first 3 rounds. They were pretty clear. Round 4, I think you could score it for Grasso. I can totally see you scoring it for Grasso. Those knees, all that stuff towards the end. She landed some impactful moments. Chevy, you could score it for her as well. And as you've seen with the judges here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that Camicho scored it for Grasso 10-9, but both Mike Bell and Saul D'Amato scored it 10-9 to Shevchenko. Mm-hmm. So again, there's no robbery here. There's no problem. Judges scored it differently, and both judges can probably have a claim that their scorecard is better than the other one. It's just down to opinion that moment, how you've judged that round. Round 5, you've got Camicho and Saul D'Amato scoring it for Grasso 10-9, even though I actually scored it for Shevchenko and you actually scored it for Shevchenko, but it's 10-9 according to those judges. Mike Bell, this is where the problem comes in. It's Mike Bell's scorecard has scored it a 10-8 for Grasso.
Where's he got that from?
I don't know, because look, we can hold our hands up as fans that have never done a judging course and say, look, don't respect our opinion over Camicho and Saul D'Amato. They gave it 10-9 to Grasso. So our scorecard of giving that to Shevchenko is wrong. So as far as I'm concerned, from watching that, I'd say, right, well, you could score it 48-47 to Grasso if you've given her 4 and 5, or you could score it to Shevchenko if you've given her 1, 3, and 4. If you want to say that 1 and 3 are definitely Shevchenko's, and you can go by the judges' scorecards, even me and Stu disagree and say that 2 and 4 are definitely Grasso's. 2 and 5, sorry. 2 and 5 are definitely Grasso's. So round 4 is go, and that's what decides the fight. It's close. But the fact that this draw has all come down to the fact that Mike Bell gave a 10-8. And if and look, I'm not saying like I'm putting us down by saying you should focus on the judges' scorecards. They know more what they're talking about than what we do, which is, that's common sense. But if me and Stu are saying I actually gave that to Shevchenko, we're not that stupid that you should have given it a 10-8 to Grasso. I don't think. Like, that strikes me as really, really strange. And it's if he gave a 10-9 to Grasso, as I think he arguably should have done, then we're looking at a situation where Shevchenko should be the new champion right now, and she should have won by split decision. It would have been 48-47 Grasso on one card and 48-47 Shevchenko on two cards. That's when the belt goes to Shevchenko by a split decision. But now we've got a draw because of a very strange 10-8 as far as I'm concerned. I would love to listen to some other people who I respect talk about this scorecard and whether they can make a case for Mike Bell having a 10-8 and that making sense. But so far, I cannot see it.
In regards, before we've referred to him as Mike Belland, we should also stress that
we haven't done that on the show though. That was in private.
We should stress that he this wasn't his first time. He's a very well respected judge within UFC and has worked on countless cards. So we should not sort of disrespect him too much. But I think it's more. Also,
this isn't one of those situations. I want you to carry on the point, but there are situations out there where you get like the UFC going to Texas or going to maybe even France or somewhere where MMA is like you get some of these smaller judges or referees on the local scene given their opportunity to do a big UFC card, and they just absolutely get something really, really, really wrong. This does happen because they go to different states or different countries where people go, well, if you're coming to our state and our country, our athletic commission, we want to have some local people reffing fights or judging fights. And they're not ready for it yet, and they make mistakes. Mike Bell's not that guy.
Did I hear this right? I was a bit short for time this morning, so I sort of I did listen to the post fights, but I was sort of multitasking so we could get around to doing this. But did I hear Valentina say something along the lines of it might have been quite a close fight, but it's Mexican Independence Day. That's why I think she got the decision.
She did not ingratiate herself to the Mexican fans at all. She was in there in the post-fight chat with Daniel Cormier, and she said that she feels like the judges felt the pressure of it being the Mexican Independence Day card. And she said, in a fair fight, the victory would have been hers. Now, I think that is a little bit harsh in terms of, if it was a fair fight, the victory would have been hers. Because as we've established, if you've scored this 48-47 for Grasso, that's okay. I gave round 5 to Chevy, but all of the judges gave round 5 to Grasso, so that makes sense. And round 4 is that one that makes all the difference. Which way did you give that? Again, that it's down to how you scored round 4, really. But in this situation, Mike Bell's 10-8 in round 5 is just, it's so strange. It's so strange. So I don't know about pressure. I don't know about, in a fair fight, she would have been victorious. That seems a bit harsh. This was a very, very close fight, but certainly there's some questions to be asked about the 10-8.
Yeah, I did like the, this is a draw, and the Mexican fans like boo, and so still, and it was like, hey, and it quite worked out what it meant till they realised.
I don't even know if Grasso understood. No, I don't think Grasso understood, because in her post-fight thing, she was like, "Oh yeah, I thought I did enough to win, or whatever it was. It was a close fight, but I am the winner." And DC was like, "Well, it was a draw."
Yeah,
and really undercut what she said.
And importantly so as well, because it did look like, I guess when you're at home and you've got the roar of that crowd and you've still got that belt around your waist, I guess it can easily be a slip to think that Well, I'm still the
Yeah.
winner. Like, but okay, so
Did you see the Sean Shelby? You saw the Sean Shelby clip, didn't you?
incredible! It's on
I
our
watched it
socials,
live.
Steve.
It was great.
Like
If you haven't seen it, go and watch before the announcement is said. A good old our mate, good old Bruce Buffer. If you haven't heard our interview with him, please go and watch that. It's fantastic. We sat down with Bruce in person and had a really cracking chat with him. So please go and check that out if you haven't already. But Bruce Buffer goes up to Sean Shelby and he whispers in his ear, and you just see Sean Shelby's reaction over Grasso's shoulder in the background, just being like, what? Just so shocked and confused. It's brilliant. Please go back and rewatch that, or that clip might have even surfaced on the socials.
When I saw that, because I think like it was impossible not to notice it. I think even if you're like the most casual a fan, you couldn't help but just see him do that and react like that.
Oh,
and
it was so good.
And when I saw that, I just thought, Grasso's won this. And then obviously it was even a more bizarre outcome. But yeah, very, very strange. So where does that leave the division? What happens here?
Oh boy, I think it's great. This is why I'm not upset too much about the result. I'm upset about, I don't think that scorecard was right. I believe the 10-8 is wrong, and I feel for Valentina, because if that 10-8 is a 10-9, she's the new champion. And so I do feel like that is very, very harsh. But I feel like this is one of those random moments where both what the UFC, I think, needs to happen and what the fans want to happen aligns. Personally, you have to run it back. You have to run this back. I think you need a definitive answer. And that fight was a really good fight. It wasn't like a bore fest or anything. And from the UFC's perspective, Shevchenko's the biggest star in that division. She drives the pay-per-views. I know this wasn't a pay-per-view fight. They gave it to you for free. Maybe that says a lot about Shevchenko's pulling power on the pay-per-views. Maybe it's not what we think it could be. But I think this goes on as a co-main event of any pay-per-view and does well because of it, because people are now even more interested. You either think Valentina got robbed, or you're like, no, Grasso won. All right, but that 10-8 was a very, very strange card. There's a lot going on here now. And I think even more will these two be at each other's throats a little bit verbally as well. And that will build the momentum for this fight. You can put this on the undercard of, say they do Prohajka versus Pereira for a vacant light heavyweight title, and this is on the co-main event. You've obviously got John Jones and Stipe coming up. I'm not sure if Colby Leon is on the co-main event of that or not, but that's happening soon. There'll be cards next year. This can go on to a variety of cards as a good co-main event for a pay-per-view. So I think the UFC business-wise knows that this is probably the fight to make. Shevchenko and Grasso are bigger stars than Blanchfield and Fiorot. And we as fans need to know what should happen here. Like, in some people's eyes, this is 1-1. In some people's eyes, it's, this is just unfinished business for most of us, I think. So I think we have to run this back. And what that does as well is it means that we also get a fantastic, without a shadow of a doubt, number one contender fight at 125 as well. And that is going to be a cracking fight. Yeah. You've got Erin Blanchfield, who I think has already deserved the title shot. Manon Fiorot, who got that big win over Rose Namajunas in Paris. You could argue she deserves a title shot as well. So now, rather than just picking one and saying, let's send that one against Grasso or Shevchenko or whatever it is, we go, right, number one contender fight. In an ideal world, on the same card. Let's do Blanchfield versus Fiorot as the opener to a pay-per-view or something like that. Or on the featured bout on the prelims, like the main event on the prelim card, and then you get the Valentina versus Grasso, rematch at the end, and you can do a stare down in the cage, because it's for sure Blanchfield, Fiorot, they're the women that should be fighting for the belt next. And because we've had this situation with the draw, those two should go at it for a number one contender fight, and that would be a fantastic fight.
Absolutely. And obviously, Manon's fight was a couple of weeks ago, so she's in no rush to fight yet. And then obviously we've just seen the champ, and Valentina just have a 5-rounder. So nothing's going to be happening
And
for a while.
Blanchfield
So
wasn't that long ago either.
Yeah.
Her fight against Santos was only recently. So, yeah, it makes sense to put all those 4 on ice for, 3 months, maybe 4, something like that, and then put them all on the same card so that we get some real good kind of like, or it's almost like a sort of mini Grand Prix, mini tournament for that flyweight belt.
And I think you need to do it like that, because I think otherwise, either Blanchfield or Manon against Grasso, unless it's in Mexico, it's not a big fight. I don't think it's a huge fight. I think Valentina's still the name. She's the person in that division that is going to get the attention. She's the one that's the superstar. And I think it gets more interesting. I think have them there on that undercard. Like you say, get that stare down afterwards, and then you really market something very good and totally deserved. We get to know who the champ is. We know that champ is, and then that champ fights the person who is absolutely number one in line for that shot. Couldn't agree more with you there, mate. Well, look,
that makes a change.
Let's have a little look what else is on the go. Okay, so we saw.
Well, before we do, should we quickly, before we mention anything, let's talk a little bit about the fact that we're partnered with GamCare, and the fact that they are a fantastic charity that help people with gambling addictions. If you are someone that is potentially suffering with a gambling addiction, or if you are a family member, a friend of someone suffering with a gambling addiction, GamCare can really, really help you. They have a fantastic website. They have a 24/7 helpline. If you're not comfortable speaking to someone over the phone, you can go on the website. They've got one of those little chat boxes where you can talk to someone, talk about your problems, your issues. If you're having situations where your gambling is affecting your relationship with your loved ones, maybe you're in debt, maybe you're looking at payday loans because you've spent your paycheck too quickly because of gambling, anything like that, please go to GamCare and get some help. And the other thing that they do, which is absolutely fantastic in a day and age where there's lots of people struggling with their mental health and struggling to find counselors and stuff like that, GamCare have the ability to get you counseling very, very, very quickly, and it's for free, which is absolutely fantastic. They can get you counseling to help deal with that. And also, as I said, if you're a friend or a family member of someone suffering with gambling, you can use those counseling helplines too, because it damages not just the individual with the problem, but the immediate people that they love around them are damaged by it as well. So, Stu, have you got the phone number, the website, and all that jazz?
Certainly have. You can call them for free on 0808 8020 133. That's 0808 802 0133. You can hit them up on the website, which is GamCare, GAMCare.org.uk. That's GamCare.org.uk. Head over there. You've got one of the little pop-up boxes as well. So just jump on there. If you don't want to pick up the phone, you can jump on there, completely anonymous, and have a chat to somebody on one of the little pop-up boxes and just get that process started. GamCare.org.uk.
Right. Kevin Holland, Jack Della Maddalena. What do you want to say about this? It was a close fight.
It wasn't that exciting, was it?
It was sort of interesting. It was really interesting to see how Jack was trying to get around Kevin Holland's long arms and range, and get those Mr. Tickle arms. He tried getting around them. That was a tricky one. I think round one for me, definitely Jack's round. Kevin Holland was giving his back a lot, and Jack landed a head kick at one point after 2 low kicks. He went up top and that landed. I think that gives him round one. I think round 2 was, close again, but it was Holland's round, I felt. And then round 3 was very, very close. And then right at the end, I felt like Jack nicked it with a couple of good strikes that landed cleanly.
He had 2 where he rushed in, didn't he?
And I felt like it was up for grabs until right near the end, that third round, and therefore that whole fight by my scorecard. So a split decision, very understandable decision. No controversy here. I think had they given it to Holland, I'd have been like, oh, I thought it was Jack. But again, I wouldn't have argued about it. Nothing was as egregious as that 10-8 from Mike Bell, in my opinion. Have you got anything to say about it?
It wasn't exciting. And
I don't know if I'd go that bad with it. There was moments where it wasn't that exciting, but there was some fascinating moments within it for me.
Yeah. I just think I mean, what Jack Della Maddalena is now, what, 6-0 in the UFC?
Oh, I haven't looked this up yet.
I think he's on a bit of a tear, but I didn't think he done anything in there last night that made anybody at 170 just go, "Oh, I don't want that smoke." And what I don't think helped is, I'm not hating on him at all. He got the win. I thought it was a very tight fight.
Yep.
And I do lean on what you said. Them last couple of sort of rushes at the end, I think probably nicked the fight for him. But post fight, like, right, okay, who do you want next? Whatever. Like,
I think he was emotional
went,
because he was being booed and stuff.
But then he was like, I don't give a whatever, just whatever. And I just thought, oh, dude, like, there was your moment. You probably, where is he now? Maybe 14? Like, and
yeah. Well, I think Holland was 13th, so he'll probably go
right,
up
okay. So he's going to go
that.
up one, yeah.
Yeah. As you say, I mean, I didn't realize how good his record was, really. He lost his first 2 pro fights and
Not in the
then
UFC,
kept
right?
going. No, his first 2 pro fights.
Yeah.
Which is quite amazing. Lost them and then has now gone on a 16-fight win streak. God, I mean, that's some turnaround, isn't it? You lose your first 2 pro fights back in 2016, and now you're on a 16-fight win streak, and I think 6 of those are in the UFC. Yeah, when you start putting together win streaks like this, whether it's slightly boring or not, and not to mention his first 4 fights in the UFC, all finishes in round 1. All finishes in round 1, which is really impressive. And now he got a split decision, I think, against Chavez recently. Yeah, that was only 2 months ago. He fought only 2 months ago. That's another thing you have to understand. He fought 2 months ago on a guy that came in at short notice who Jack was supposed to absolutely smash. He didn't. He only won by split decision. And that sent alarm bells ringing around people saying, oh, is this guy as good as we thought he was? Because he's just struggled there when he really should have smashed the guy. Now he's gone on to fight Kevin Holland, who we all know is dangerous, is very good. He's got good jiu-jitsu as well as being long and rangy, tricky on the feet, kung fu style, all that stuff. And he's only won a split decision, although I do think he deserved to win that split decision.
Mm-hmm.
But he's six fight win streak now. You can't deny. Like, is he going to have to get to the Arnold Allen and Leon Edwards start situation where he's not going to be getting anywhere near a title shot until, he's on 9, 10 plus fights? It shouldn't go that way. That's not how it should be. I know that his last 2 fights have been split decisions, and it's not been the most maybe entertaining for you, particularly his fight last night. But I think when someone's got a 6-fight win streak going and 4 of them are finishes, you have to start thinking this guy needs to move up the rankings a bit quicker, and we need to really test where he's at. So I'm just going to quickly look at the welterweight rankings, unless you want to jump in with any kind of ideas or thoughts about him.
Well, I guess Jeff Neal seems to be, loitering around the gates of the top 10, and obviously
really good shout.
See him pulled the fight
against
from
Ian Gary.
Ian Gary at number 11. I don't really see that they're going to make that fight happen. That doesn't make sense.
No,
makes no sense. Vincent Luque at number 10 as well. But I think that the Jeff Neal, Sean Brady,
Vincent Luque. Vincente Luque. I swear you said Valentino. I swear you said Valentino Shevchenko earlier as well.
Valentina.
I swear you said Valentino. I swear you did.
All right. From now on, I'm just going to keep me V's to Vals and Vince. Right? I'm safe then.
Val and Vince.
What a sitcom.
Sounds like a terrible sitcom, doesn't it? Val and Vince. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that's a great shout, Jeff Neal. I mean, you could say that Ian Gary could fight Jeff Neal anyway. There's beef there. There's something there, but I don't know. I think Jack Della Maddalena versus Jeff Neal and Ian Gary going for that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight. Obviously, that could be something. I mean, these rankings are probably going to have to change soon anyway, because Khamzat Chimaev is ranked 4th in the welterweight rankings, and we all know that he is he's going up to middleweight to fight Paulo Costa very, very soon. So he'll be coming out of there. So everyone's going to leap up one place anyway. But But yeah, I definitely think Jeff Neal is a really good shout for Jack Della Maddalena. Both good crisp boxers as well. That could be a really fun fight. And maybe that's what he needs. He needs a guy that he's going to have a
different
fun
levels of range.
match up with.
I think it'd be far more in the pocket, and he likes fighting in the pocket.
Yeah,
You could see
he
when he got
does.
inside, like he was far more
He was letting
effective
them go
against Holland. So I think having a much shorter and less wiry fighter could give a much more exciting kind of tear up.
Yep, I agree. Raul Rosas Jr. had a really great comeback after losing his last fight. You know, had all the hype behind him. Youngest fighter on the UFC roster, this 18-year-old wizard. And then he lost his last fight, kind of gassed out, was really not good. The problem with this for me is I haven't seen necessarily a great improvement. It's a great kind of mental victory for him to come back and to put on the performance that he did, to get the win that he did. But he went out there like a bat out of hell. Thankfully for him, Terence Mitchell did the same. And he was able to clip him with a beauty of a left hook when Terence Mitchell thought that he was probably sidestepping out the way. It just come right round onto him. And I just think that's a great win. It's a great moment. UFC Noche, all that stuff. Youngest fighter on the roster. Let's keep that going. Build him up slowly. But I think I would have felt a little bit better about him going forward had he come out way more composed, had he let it go a bit longer in the round or even got into the second round and got a solid victory there. Right now, I'm like, if you come out composed and weather the storm in the first round against Raul Rosas Jr., is he still going to gas? Because he really did in that previous fight, and that's what cost him. So I don't feel like I've learned anything new about him.
No.
But he's 18. There's a long way to go. And it's still a really, really good win to just get a first round knockout win in front of a sort of home crowd. It wasn't Mexico, but it was.
Needed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that was the perfect thing, because what we got that followed that with Holland and that wasn't overly thrilling for a casual fan. Whereas I think, you know, that there is a lot of hype around him, and he did look quite terrible in that last outing. But what we see is him come back, really wanting to prove a point. And we know as obsessives to this sport that we do want to see, we want to learn more about these fighters and see that if they're in that same situation again, how they would react. What happens coming out to rounds 2 and 3 if you've just gone on an absolute tear in that first round and you're blowing out your ass? What are we going to get from Raul Rosas Jr. later down the line? We didn't see that, but I think what we saw was super exciting, and I'd much rather last night watching that card have seen what I saw. It was fun. It was exciting. I think it'd do his confidence good. And I think he would 100% of his corner would have learned from that last fight. I'm sure other changes were made so that wouldn't be an eventuality last night. We don't know, but I guess it kind of maybe puts that hype train back on the railway lines again a little bit, and who knows? We're gonna, the more he fights, the further, the tougher opponents he gets. I mean, the guy he fought last night, I think it was his second fight in the UFC. He lost to Kai France in the Ultimate Fighter finale, I think. It might not even be the finale, but he lost to Kai France in the Ultimate Fighter a few years back. Since then, he had his UFC debut a while back, lost that, and he's just come in against the hype train in technically his back garden, however you want to sort of frame that. The Mexican crab, made in their own last night, 100%. And yeah, I think we saw something really fun and exciting last night, and it was great to watch. And I think he's great. I mean, I think his ego maybe needed reining in a little bit last time. He seemed to be getting very, very super cocky and I think that must have just. I mean, the kid's 18, for God's sake. I mean, if you've got the world and their wife telling you that you are the man at 18 years of age and you're fighting in front of tens of thousands of people, I've got to be a grounded lad to not let that get to you. But I think it got to him a little too much, and I think that last outing would have reined him in a bit. And I think last night he went in there and done what I think he needed to do to get his confidence back where it needs to go. And fingers crossed we see something more exciting next fight.
Absolutely. There is not a huge amount else to talk about, I don't think. There was obviously
I've not seen the
Zell.
prelims yet.
Right, well, I'll just run through a few results and we'll talk about a couple of little bits. Zellhuber beat Jagos by an anaconda, I believe. Carl Nelson beat Padilla by a decision. An interesting fight. Ranked Tracy Cortez coming back after a long time off, beat Jasmine Jasdavicius. She kind of confirms her spot in that top 15, Tracy Cortez, by defending against someone unranked in Jasdavicius. I think Jasdavicius is unranked. I'll double check that in a second. But, Cortez looked good. She's someone that's very good on the ground, but it was her boxing and her hands that did well in this fight. And I believe she's now 5-0 in the UFC. So she's someone, again, that should be staring up the rankings going, come on, I need a really good, someone solid in the top 10, someone 8, 7, something like that, and really go for it and see what she can do. There was one moment that was interesting where Jasdavicius was like grabbing her braids. Both of them had like long braids down here. And Jasdavicius, I think, was getting quite frustrated and going in for the strikes, but looked great in that third round. She was kind of like marauding forward. Like she almost looked inhuman because her face was busted up a bit and she had her arms down and mouth open at one point, just walking forward to Cortez, who I think was like, I'm so glad this isn't a 5-round fight because she's like a zombie just coming at me. I'm hitting her with strikes and she's not stopping, she's not getting stopped. So, yes, I thought that was good. But Jasdavicius is like grabbing the braid at one point just to try and, I think, lead her into a kick or something like that, which obviously is illegal. You can't do that. But I just want to quickly check those women's flyweight rankings. As I say, Cortez is 14th. And, I'd love to see her fight a Jennifer Maia or a Viviana Araújo and try and get into, or a Lauren Murphy maybe, try and get into that top 10 and see what she can do from there. There was a really interesting. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Go on. No, what were you going to say? You stand on the Cortez
the
fight. Sorry.
Charez versus La Sierra.
Yeah, what's that?
So that was a really interesting one. It was one of those ones where the kids were running around by this point in the morning and I wasn't fully focusing. But Charez looked like he beat La Sierra by a standing anaconda choke. It looked, from first viewing, you were like, oh, wow, that's good.
First round, right?
Yes. And then as Chris Tione steps in and waves it off, Lacerda is just stood up going, what? No, I'm not out. I'm fine, because he didn't tap. What happened was he was sort of trying to fight the hand a bit, then trying to fight the hand again. And then his hand just went limp. And Chris Tione, he stepped in too soon. He made a mistake and he stepped in too soon. And he thought by that hand going limp that he was out. Okay. But actually, that wasn't the case. He wasn't out. He was just relaxing. It's one of those situations where if you're in that choke and you can't do anything about it, from my knowledge, sometimes the best thing to do is just, if you're not, it's going to be very uncomfortable and painful. But if it's not choking you out, just relax, let them burn their arms out. And then once they get a bit weaker, then you can try and find an escape. And then their arms are burnt out and you can press forward with your attack. It's when you're shifting around loads, when the choke's not quite in, that can make space for the choke to lock in a little bit deeper. So it was just one of those moments. Chris Tione made a mistake. He saw the arm go limp. He stepped in. And then what's brilliant is the referees and judges or whatever it was, they went to the tape, they reviewed it, and it was called like a no decision. So that, I guess, is going to have to be run back or whatever. It's almost a shame they don't treat it like old school WWF. And like, I don't know whether this is possible, but like in old school kind of like WWF fights and stuff, what you would get is like a controversial decision or a moment where like Vince McMahon or someone they've rung the bell and so-and-so's won. And then he walks down the ring and he's like, no, or another referee runs down to the ring and has a whisper in the other referee's ear and he goes, no, he cheated. His feet were on the ropes, or someone came in and hit the other guy or whatever it was. And then the announcer would be like, due to the referee having some more information, that so-and-so is not the winner, this fight will continue. And you're like, yes, let's do that. Let's just go. All right, there was a mistake here. Let's go back. Let's say it's either it's round 2 or it's, there's a minute and a half left in round number 1. Let's go. Because what I really feel for, and this is because of the pay structure within the UFC and stuff, is that neither of these guys is going to get their full paycheck.
Yeah.
They've got half their paycheck for turning up. And then neither of them, like, you feel really sorry for Cherez because as far as he's concerned, he's won. And it's not his fault that this decision was a bad decision, but he's won. He's expecting double his paycheck, which when you're this low down the card as well, you're thinking he probably needs that because that's probably the difference between him going and working a day job and then training in the evenings to going, oh no, I can train for the next few months and that's it, just solely train and be a pro fighter, because those are the issues that we have in MMA. But also you can't say to Lacerda, oh no, you've just lost when he didn't. So I almost want the fight to continue so that we can get a definitive answer and go, oh, okay, at least this guy is going to get his full paycheck. So that was a bit of a weird one. Kopilov absolutely destroyed Fremd, battered his face, and then landed some mean body shots to end it. There was like a kick to the body that really rattled Fremd. I think it was round 2. I can't remember. And then he gave him a dig to the ribs shortly after that kick. And you could just see it was just too much for Fremd. Kopilov's looking really good. And again, one of these guys, like, he's lost his first 2 fights going into the UFC, got into the UFC, lost his first 2 fights. And you're like, oh, this guy can't cut it at this level. And now he's won 4 in a row and they're all finishes.
We're seeing this is a blueprint, isn't it? Get your losses out of the way when you start and then just go on a tear.
Yeah.
Get it all done early doors.
So again, 4 fights in a row, 4 finishes. You would hope he's going to get a big fight next, whether it be a ranked opponent or a big name at middleweight that isn't ranked, something there that kind of propels him forward because he's looking very, very good. And then Lupi Godinez versus Elise Reed. There was one of those kind of squeamishy moments in round 1 where I don't know how Elise Reed survived this armbar attempt. Like, Lupi Godinez was absolutely smashing her, but got her down into this armbar, and Elise Reed's just, her arm flexibility was able to keep her in it. She really cleverly using her feet to break the arm lock regularly of Lupi Godinez so that she couldn't quite pull on the arm enough. Really good work with her feet to kind of stop that. I've not seen that defense enough with these arm bars, and it makes me think we should probably see it more, just break the lock with the feet. But then she was able to grab hold of the arm, twist it in a slightly different direction, so it wasn't just going straight like that, it was going kind of like that way. And then I think it was Herb Dean. He was so ready to stop this fight because it looked like that arm was about to snap in two, and he was so poised and ready to stop it. But Elise Reed just somehow continued to not tap and just survived that round. And it was incredible. Sadly, it was all for naught because in the second round, she probably had all her tendons, not her bones, but her tendons all ripped up in her arm or something. But then Godinez took her back and won by rear naked choke in round 2. But yeah, I mean, if you want to see some crazy arm flexibility and toughness, go and watch round 1 of Lupi Godinez versus Elise Reed. That was something else. I don't know how she survived that armbar.
I could watch hours and hours of like people's reactions watching them arm bars. And
oh no, don't! I react to it just thinking about it. I just my arm. I just go. Oh, I'm like that. I'm like flapping my wings, like doing a chicken dance or something. Oh no, don't not the arm. Oh, I'm just doing that the whole time. It's terrible.
Oh, wonderful! All right. Well, look. If you've enjoyed today's episode, thanks ever so much for listening. If you have enjoyed, as I said, this episode, go check out the back catalogue because we're over 170 episodes in there, and there's some wonderful chats to be enjoyed with some of the superstars of this sport. You can hear Blake and I talking to Alexander Volkanovski. He's been on this show twice now. You can hear us talking to recovering light heavyweight champ Jamal Hill, Tyron Woodley, Michael Bisping, Dan Hardy, Mark Goddard, Arnold Allen, Paddy the Baddy Pimlet's been on a few times. Molly McCann has been on a few times. Who else?
Corey Sandhagen, Ricky Simone, Derek Brunson,
Nathaniel
Arnold
Wood.
Allen, Jack Shaw, Brett Johns, Oban Elliott, and George Hardwick from the Cage Warrior scene. Oban Elliott now a UFC fighter, and Graham Boylan, president of the of Cage Warriors.
Don't want to jinx it.
Loads.
Don't want to jinx it, but we should have a absolute monster of Cage Warriors recording with us next week, who is looking to follow in the footsteps of a teammate at Next Gen, and if we can get that one secured for this week, that'll be coming your way next week. In the meantime,
I'm disappointed at you, and I'm shaking my head disparagingly, because whenever we've done this, whenever we've said, "Oh, we've got this coming your way," or "We've got a chat with this person coming up," it never works out. I am so disappointed that you've absolutely ruined this. Guys, we are constantly trying to reach out to fighters as well to try and get them on and add to our roster of interviews that we've had. If there's anyone that you would love us to chat to, within reason, obviously, we're not superstars yet. We're not Ariel Helwani, guys. But if there's anyone you want us to chat to, whether it be someone on the kind of local British scene that you think has got a really solid future, whether it be someone in the UFC, Cage Warriors, Bellator, whatever, give us a shout. And we will try and make it happen. We want to get guests on, and we want to get you some really interesting chats. So please do get in touch with us. And also shout out to Nathaniel Woods, because I believe he signed a contract to fight a fight at short notice recently. I don't know who the opponent is yet. I don't know if that's been announced.
I thought you was talking about he's having a little wrestle as well, isn't he?
Is he?
Have you not seen who he's fighting?
Oh, he's fighting Aljamain Sterling, isn't he? Like a Polaris, like grappling thing. Well, that's really well. Best of luck to Nathaniel Wood for that. But also,
who do you think?
Who's he fighting at short notice at featherweight? I don't know. I want to know. I'm going to message him. I should have messaged him. I'm going to message him and find out who he's fighting. But
well, hopefully we'll get Nate back on then. Once that's announced,
we'll get Nate.
We'll get him back on, because
we'll get Nate back on
the show. He's Nate. Right. Make sure you subscribe. Give us a follow on the socials. We're probably, I'd say, most active on Instagram. That's not to say that we don't have a presence and we don't post on Facebook and Twitter. Give us a follow. Just search.
And also TikTok. Stu Whiffin is the oldest account holder on TikTok. And he's putting stuff out there, and it's he's doing really well. He's putting the MMA Fan podcast out on TikTok. I don't touch any of that stuff.
Do well. I'll Grandad over there.
Didn't he do well? Grandad with it.
Well done.
Well, no, congratulations. You're doing a bit of TikTok, and you were able to screen share on this. Well done. Don't accidentally delete the recording or something.
Don't say that. We posted what last week? 89.2 thousand views we got on one of our TikToks. Mental. I got overly excited. I don't know why.
I don't know what that. I don't know if that's good. I don't do TikTok. I don't know.
But
if you told me we got 10 views, I'd have been like, "Oh, that's probably an improvement on how it's been before." So, whatever, good.
Yeah. So, go and give us a follow over on TikTok. And if you've not watched the podcast yet, head over to YouTube and subscribe over there. And if you want to see us not doing the podcast as we are currently over Zoom footage, which looks great. But go and have a little look at the Bruce Buffer episode, because we went and met Bruce, and there was a little camera crew there, and it looks beautiful. It's a really good way to kind of make your introduction to watching us on YouTube. So go check out the Bruce Buffer episode, and because it's fucking Bruce Buffer, what other reason do you need?
Stories for days.
Absolutely. Right, we're back next time. In the meantime, see ya.
Bye.